Thank you. 6 questions with a couple of parts to them, but I just would like to understand, and apologies if these may be similar to Senator Canavan's earlier questions, but how much did the independent regulator cost 4 years ago, and how much does it cost this current financial year?
Senator, my colleague might be able to offer the figures for 4 years ago.
Yep.
I can certainly, we already answered questions about the cost for this year.
For this year.
But happy to repeat those if that's helpful.
For this year?
4 years ago. I don't think I have the numbers for 4 years ago. So I'd have to...
So you don't have 2017-18?
No.
On notice then, could I please have that? And then I'd like a breakdown on my assumption is these costs have risen significantly, and if I could have an understanding of what has caused the independent regulator's costs to increase so significantly over the last 4 years.
Certainly we'll take that on notice, Senator.
We get on notice all of the last 4
Yeah.
years?
So each of the last 4 years?
Yep, so we can
Going
see...
back to, sorry,
So I want this financial
16,
year we've
17,
got,
so, yeah.
and then I want 4 years ago, year on year.
Yep, absolutely.
And then I want a breakdown of what has caused those increases.
The reasons for the increase.
Yes.
So, yeah, absolutely, we'll take
Thank
that on
you.
notice, Senator.
So how much do you anticipate costs to be in financial year 23-24?
I'll pass that to Ms McEwen.
So the figures for 2021 it'll be 22.4 million.
Mm-hmm.
I think that rises to around 24 million in 23-24.
Okay. So what's the main drop?
Oh, sorry. But that is assuming that none of the... Well, that's on current projections. We have got a range of regulatory reform activities happening at the moment that should actually lead to a reduction in that, some of which are funded out of the congestion busting package, so relate to IT improvements. Others which have been arisen as a result of work we've done with industry, and they'll be focused more on reductions in process.
But on the current projections you've put forward in the budget, what is the main driver of those?
So many of those costs, the costs increased significantly following the MOS review after the Awassi incident in order to cover a number of different things. One was the increase in the reintroduction of a legislative decision point.
Ms McEwen, I'm now talking about the cost projections from this financial year to 23-24.
So those increases are based on
the implementation
CPI.
of the MOS review.
Yeah, well, so the increases from prior to 2018-19 are around implementation of MOS review.
Mm-hmm.
The rises over the next couple of years are just CPI.
Are only
built out.
CPI?
Yeah, from now till then, yeah, I believe.
Yeah, but we are working with industry to try and actually reduce.
Yes, no, I understand that. When you answer my question on notice about what's driven the cost increases, I don't want implementation of the MOS review. I want a lot more detail than that.
Well,
but I'll leave that for the on
I think
notice.
what the officer has said, Senator, is that that was the catalyst, but we will give you detail.
I want detail. Thank you.
The detail of what those recommendations have required. So.
Did that include recovering the costs of the animal welfare branch?
Yeah, well, the costs of the animal welfare branch are projected into the forward costs. They haven't been cost recovered, well, mostly haven't been cost recovered up to this point, but that will be a decision made at the time that the CRIS is implemented, the cost recovery implementation statement.
So does the animal welfare branch make regulatory decisions, and how many staff work in that branch?
The Animal Welfare Branch does not make regulatory decisions, but they set the regulatory standards in many cases. They are also doing a large amount of work around, currently around consistency of decision making, which has been something that the industry has raised as a consistent concern for them, and they do analysis. There are currently of voyages and voyage outcomes. There's currently around about 18 staff within the Animal Welfare Branch.
And so policy work and the like?
Standard setting work, yes.
Yep. So how does that reconcile with the Australian Government's cost recovery guidelines, which states it's usually inappropriate to cost recover some government activities such as general policy development and the like?
Because it's not considered general policy work. It's about specific standards setting
work
for the area. Some parts of that branch remain appropriation funded because they are about more general policy.
So you mentioned some of the work that's being done within the department around ICT, etc., to decrease the cost of delivering and regulating for industry.
Will be done, yes.
Yep. Can I have an understanding of the quantum of the savings for industry that these initiatives will provide?
So at the moment we're still in a discovery phase, so we haven't actually established exactly what those savings will be.
Do we know what we're going to do?
In the ICT space, we haven't specifically quantified all of the activities that we'll be doing.
We don't know what we're going to
stage.
do, and therefore we don't know how much we're going to save. When will we know that?
We do know that we want to do something.
Excellent.
We have a clear objective of making it simpler and more streamlined. So.
Right. Can I have a timeline on this? Because industry is incredibly frustrated by having to pay for things that is very opaque to try and unpack and understand what benefit it is to them. And I'm not given any confidence today.
I'm sorry to hear that, Senator, because something that we have been working very hard on over the last year, notwithstanding COVID, has been trying to far better work with industry and to understand what's going on. And indeed, Mr Hazelhurst has spent a lot of time with the meat industry and the live exports industry in particular with this focus. So.
Senator, we'd be happy to provide on notice the details of the reform program that has been agreed with industry, which they're very aware of because we've worked on it collaboratively.
No, I appreciate that. I'm talking to the ICT savings that were mentioned that we still are unable to quantify.
The reform program incorporates things to do with IT. Most of the IT developments that will occur will be about removing the very significant amounts of documentation that flow between not just live animal exporters, but actually the export sector in general.
Yes, I remember the submission.
Yep. So there's a very extensive program being put into place around that. We'd expect some of the first examples of concrete improvements to be flowing within the next few months, but not necessarily immediately to the live export sector. We'll have a full program of how those things are going to roll out in the coming months.
Okay, I'd appreciate being kept up to date on that. In terms of the deployment of independent observers, my understanding that's ceased as a result of the COVID pandemic, is that correct?
It's paused during
Paused, with one exception, Senator. You remember the LQ8 vessel, and we did have an independent observer on that ship.
So has the export of livestock ceased? No. And what are the animal welfare outcomes as a result of not having those independent observers on these ships? Have we seen a more negative
not
impacts?
specifically, but we also don't have as much of an understanding of what's been happening on the voyages.
So what do the mortality rates tell you?
There have been, they've been fairly consistent with other at other times.
Okay. How many staff does the department employ here in Canberra to regulate the livestock industry? I'll put these on notice. They're all about who lives where, why, and how does that compare internationally.
Yeah, and the livestock industry as a whole, or live export industry,
Live X.
yeah, because... Yeah.
I'll put them on notice. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Senator McKenzie.